The Bahamas, the world's best cave divers plunge into the abyss. They're exploring underwater caves, littered with mysteries and divers who didn't get out alive.
A statue is hoisted from the Mediterranean as Egyptian archaeologists and divers work together to recover relics from the seabed in Alexandria.
My love of learning, and that's all down to philosophy, this confidence you have in argument, because if you can learn how to argue properly, nothing is hidden from you in principle. It's always possible.
For over 16 centuries, the sea kept a secret. Somewhere beneath the modern harbor of Alexandria, Egypt, buried under 6 meters of silt, seawater, and the slow erosion of empires, lies a stretch of stone that once formed the private harbor of the most powerful woman in the ancient world. This was not a myth. This was not legend dressed up for tourists. This was Cleopatra's world, her palace quarter, her temples, her ships, swallowed whole by the earth itself. No war destroyed it, no army burned it down. The ground simply gave way. A combination of earthquakes, tsunamis, and slow coastal subsidence dragged an entire royal district of Alexandria into the Mediterranean, where it lay hidden and unreachable for over 1,000 years. Hidden so completely that for centuries, scholars debated whether it had ever existed at all, or whether it was simply exaggeration folded into the legend of a queen already larger than life. Then, in the final years of the 20th century, a team of divers descended into the murky harbor waters and found something that should not have survived: colossal statues lying face down in the mud, granite columns still standing where they fell, and stone blocks bearing inscriptions that matched no known catalog. And in the years since, as sonar and remote sensing have mapped further into the submerged city, researchers have identified structures they still cannot fully explain. Sealed chambers, buried enclosures, sections of the site too unstable or too deep to open safely. What exactly lies inside those unexplored spaces has not been publicly confirmed, but among the archaeologists who have worked this site for over 2 decades, there is a quiet, recurring unease, the sense that the deeper they dig, the less certain they become of what they will find. What is actually down there? And why, after all this time, does the team still hesitate to bring it fully into the light? Alexandria was founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BCE and became the capital of Ptolemaic Egypt, the dynasty that ended with Cleopatra VII. Ancient sources, including the Greek geographer Strabo, who visited Alexandria decades after Cleopatra's death, describe a royal harbor district, palace complexes extending along the coastline, and a temple to the goddess Isis on a peninsula called Antiridos. Modern underwater surveys, led primarily by Frank Gaudio and his team beginning in 1992, have located submerged architectural remains in the eastern harbor of modern Alexandria, consistent in general location with ancient descriptions of the royal quarter. Divers have recovered granite columns, sphinxes, ceremonial slabs, and fragments of statuary, some bearing inscriptions from the Ptolemaic era. Sediment analysis and geological studies have shown that this stretch of coastline experienced significant subsidence and seismic activity in antiquity, offering a plausible explanation for how the district ended up underwater. Precisely which structures belong to which pharaoh, and whether specific ruins can be tied directly to Cleopatra herself rather than earlier or later rulers, remains an active and unresolved question among Egyptologists. The identification of Antiridos as Cleopatra's private island palace is widely accepted as plausible, but not universally proven, since no inscription found so far names her explicitly at the site. Some popular accounts have suggested that Cleopatra's tomb, which ancient sources say existed, but whose location was lost, lies within this submerged zone, or nearby at the Temple of Taposiris Magna, where a separate excavation has searched for the tomb since 2005. This remains unproven. No tomb, sarcophagus, or definitive burial has ever been found at either site. Here is where the story complicates. The submerged district does not behave like a simple ruin. Portions of it are stable enough to survey freely, statues that have been raised, catalogued, and displayed in museums around the world. But other portions of the site remain, as researchers have described in published interviews, too fragile or too structurally uncertain to fully excavate. Sonar mapping conducted over the past 2 decades has revealed the outlines of enclosed spaces, sections that read on scans as hollow, chambered, or sealed by centuries of compacted silt that have not yet been opened. This is not on its own unusual in archaeology. Many sites take generations to fully excavate. But it has left an unusually persistent gap between what has been shown to the public and what is known to exist beneath the visible ruins. That gap is the space where speculation grows. In recent years, archaeological teams working on submerged and buried sites have begun applying machine learning models to sonar and ground-penetrating radar data, allowing researchers to identify probable structural voids and man-made shapes far faster than manual analysis alone. It is important to be precise about what this technology can and cannot do. Artificial intelligence pattern recognition tools can flag anomalies in scan data, a symmetrical void, a regular edge, a shape inconsistent with natural silt deposits, and prioritize which areas deserve a diver's attention. What it cannot do is confirm what an object is, translate an inscription with certainty, or replace physical excavation. Every flagged anomaly still requires a human diver, a physical survey, and peer review before it becomes an accepted finding. What is true is that these tools have helped narrow down where future excavation seasons should focus, including sections of the harbor that have not yet been physically opened. Not everyone in the archaeological community agrees on how to proceed. Some researchers argue for caution, warning that further excavation in an unstable, silt-packed, and seismically active harbor risks collapsing structures that have survived only because they remained buried. Others argue that leaving sealed sections unexcavated risks losing information to erosion, looting, or future construction along Alexandria's crowded modern waterfront. Egyptian antiquities authorities have historically moved carefully on sensitive sites tied to Cleopatra, partly because of the intense public and media attention any such discovery attracts, and partly out of standard preservation protocol applied to fragile underwater remains. There is no verified evidence of any deliberate concealment of findings, but the slow, methodical pace of the work has, understandably, fed public speculation about what officials are allegedly not yet disclosing.
The conventional explanation is simple. The sealed sections of the site are unexcavated ruins, palace foundations, temple enclosures, or storage structures that have not yet been opened due to funding, safety, and the sheer scale of the underwater survey. Nothing more dramatic than the ordinary slowness of careful archaeology. The alternative theory suggests something more. Some independent researchers and documentary voices speculate that the unopened chambers could contain intact burial contexts, possibly connected to Cleopatra's family or her lost tomb, given the site's proximity to the royal quarter described by ancient historians. But many Egyptologists caution against getting ahead of the evidence. A void in radar data can just as easily be a natural cavity, a collapsed structure, or an already looted space from antiquity. It is scientifically irresponsible to treat an unopened anomaly as proof of hidden treasure or a preserved tomb. There is something quietly haunting about a queen whose life was so thoroughly documented by Roman historians, by playwrights, by centuries of art and legend, and whose actual resting place remains entirely unknown. Cleopatra ruled at the hinge point between the ancient Egyptian world and the rise of Rome. She was, by every surviving account, formidably intelligent, fluent in multiple languages, and politically skilled enough to negotiate with the most powerful men of her era. Yet the ground itself has denied us her final chapter. Every artifact raised from that harbor is a fragment of a much larger, still buried story, one that resists the neat conclusions documentaries often crave. The unopened sections of Alexandria's Sunken district are not proof of a conspiracy. They are proof of how slowly and how carefully real history has to be uncovered. Beneath the waves of a modern, bustling Egyptian harbor, sealed sections of a lost royal city still wait, untouched, unexplained, and for now, unopened. Perhaps what lies inside is nothing more than broken stone and empty rooms, or perhaps it is something that will finally answer questions historians have carried for 2,000 years. Until the next excavation season begins, no one can say for certain. What do you think is still down there, and should it stay buried? Let us know in the comments.